sometimes when evaluating quarterback prospects for the NFL draft, you have a challenge in trying to differentiate between college success and NFL potential. And you think about, you've seen a lot of productive, highly productive college quarterbacks over the years that just don't transition well to the NFL. They just don't make it. They just don't have that NFL level of ability. And there's a variety of different factors. The jump up in talent from the college level to the NFL level, where in the college level you might be playing against one or two players on defense that are all conference to all American type of talents, where you go to the NFL and rosters have comprised primarily of those type of guys, all conference and all American type of guys. It's a significant jump in competition. College, it can be easier to mask deficiencies and accentuate positives and hide negatives. Sometimes based off of specifically the systems that you have, they are designed as such to get the most out of a quarterback while putting as little pressure and expectation on them as possible. So you see sometimes these guys that are really productive and they make a name for themselves in college because of their productivity, because of their profile, and then you really struggle to see where they can transition the same and be that similar type of productive player at the NFL level. And one of those guys, to me, that fits in that category this year is Mason Rudolph from Oklahoma State. He was a highly productive player. But you wonder how much of that production was due to having a couple of NFL wide receivers like Marcel Aikman and James Washington playing in that system under Mike Gundy, where he is really good on the offensive side of the ball. He is one of the best offensive minds in college football. How much does that benefit him? How much does he get out of himself because of that? And does that necessarily mean he can be an NFL starter? And the simple answer is, I don't know. Because when I look at Mason Rudolph, as I imagine a lot of scouting departments are going to look at him, the reactions are going to be very mixed. Because on the positive side, here's what you've got. A guy about 6'4", 215, maybe 220 pounds. Pretty close to the ideal size of what you would want for a traditional drop-back NFL pocket passer. Even though ultimately he played in a system where he's primarily playing out of the shotgun, so he's going to have to learn how to be a traditional drop-back passer in the NFL. He's going to have to learn how to play under center. But frankly, so many of these other guys in college do too. So that's not something that in and of itself should be disqualifying. But he does have that size. He's also a guy that made every start the last 3 seasons. And when you talk about a guy and their abilities or their inability to be a franchise quarterback, injuries can be the number one derailer, the number one killer. You must have the ability of availability. And to Mason Rudolph's credit, as a guy who's not very mobile and not incredibly athletic, doesn't avoid the big hits, he was able to make every start the past 3 seasons. So you have to feel confident that this is a guy that if you put him in a situation, an opportunity where he had to play, you'd feel pretty confident that he could answer the bell week in and week out. Also mechanically, I feel like he's pretty good. His footwork is really good for a guy that plays primarily out of the shotgun. I feel like it would be an easy transition to him to learn how to drop back from center and take a more traditional drop back approach at the NFL level. I feel like his arm angle is also very good as well. Tends to have a decent height on his release point. Those type of things are important because there's nothing worse to me than seeing a guy that's 6'4" and 6'5" that primarily drops down here or even sidearm when they throw, because you're eliminating the advantage of the height that you have. You're giving yourself, unless you're really expert at finding throwing lanes and throwing windows, you're going to have a lot of balls batted down. And Mason Rudolph traditionally releases the ball high enough where that should not, in theory, be a major concern at the NFL level. But just in general, mechanics, smooth, repeatable, so you feel like he's going to be pretty consistent. You don't have to worry about wide variances as of 1 week he's on the money and he's really good, and the next week he's not, so he's really not. Also, his pocket presence is pretty good. To me, I saw a guy who had natural feel and a comfort level being in there, showed some movement skills within the pocket, which is going to be really important because when you think about the best of traditional pocket passers over the recent years, the guys like the Mannings and the Bradys and the Breezes, and then at a lesser level, guys like a Matt Ryan, just to give you a few examples, Big Ben as well. These are guys that didn't have the greatest athleticism. They didn't have the greatest mobility. They weren't going to create a ton of big plays with their feet. They weren't going to be guys you send out scrambling a whole hell of a lot. They're not guys that are going to sit there and run for first downs a lot, not by design anyways. But what they did have the ability to do is be able to move back and forth and up and down and around within the pocket to be able to buy that extra tenth or 2/10 or 3/10 of a second to be able to get themselves into position to throw the football. And Mason Rudolph showed that ability to me. Got good movement skills within the pocket in a short area and a natural feel and a comfort level for being in the pocket. Like, to me, I didn't see where he was terrified of the rush coming at him. So those are the good things about his game. But then we get to the concerns, and a lot of these concerns to me at the college level at Oklahoma State have been masked by the talent that he had around him and the system that he played in under Mike Gundy. Number one, his field vision is going to need a lot of work. Lots of one-read throws, lots of easy throws for him. Didn't have to make a ton of decisions because ultimately a lot of times his primary target was open, and that was kind of the design of the system, is designed to get guys open easily and quickly, and he was able to do that. And if he wasn't doing that, then he's throwing the ball down the field. Again, a lot of one-read throws. So he was a guy that I felt like if you were paying attention and you were doing your job coaching on the defensive end, which, let's be honest, most Big 12 schools do not, then you should be able to sit there and say, wherever his eyes are, that's where they're going. That's where he's going. And you get to that point where you can predict where they're going, then you've got that quarterback in a bad place. His mobility did improve, I felt like, in 2017. There were occasionally times where he was able to make an athletic play and get out of the pocket and extend the play. But again, it's not going to be his calling card at the NFL level. While it's gotten better, it could still use some work. And it's still a weakness in his game, and a big weakness in his game, because it could take him a while to gather and collect himself before he gets on the move. It's not natural. It's not crisp. And again, it's never going to be a calling card of Mason Rudolph's game, and nor should it. Again, he also played in a system that minimized his decision-making, minimized the decisions that he did have to make, and sometimes he didn't always make the best decisions because he was only going with his first read. He would throw into double coverage. He would not look off the safety and put the ball at risk at times. It's really hard to evaluate decision-making for a guy that played in a system that so often didn't have to make a lot of decisions. Just the first thing you see, you react to it. I also feel like his accuracy is much, much worse than his numbers would indicate. And I touched on this a little bit on the Josh Allen scouting report on the one hand, in terms of accuracy numbers don't always tell the whole picture. And sure, I'm going to get blasted for that on that video, I'm sure. But on the flip side of that, here's a guy whose accuracy numbers are better, much better than Josh Allen's, but they don't tell the whole story. And in this particular case, I do feel like it is easier to see or easier to understand what I'm getting at, because when you talk about accuracy, Mason Rudolph was consistently, to me, off the mark. Consistently, specifically with his ball placement, with guys like Washington and Aitman having to consistently adjust to the ball, make athletic plays to get to it. Mason Rudolph was overthrowing guys, hitting them in the wrong spots, just flat out missing them. And that's playing in a system with a lot of one-read, quick throw type of stuff. His accuracy, I felt like, was one of his biggest weaknesses. One of his biggest weaknesses. But not as big of a weakness as his lack of arm strength. You know, even when you look at the number grades and so on and so forth, I feel like the bigger concern to me is the arm strength. It's severely lacking. It's his number one weakness in overall to me. It is just not there. And when you are a big pocket passing type of quarterback and you can't really extend plays with your feet consistently, and on top of that, you're not incredibly accurate with the throws that you make, you also lack in arm strength, so you're going to have trouble fitting the ball into tight windows. You're going to have trouble in cold weather, bad weather environments being able to stretch the football down the field vertically. It might play well in a dome, and it might play all right in warm weather situations, but if you're playing on a cold weather team, Mason Rudolph's arm just does not translate very well. It just doesn't. And you could really see it when he would try to stretch the field at all outside of 10 yards. He had to get a lot of air under the ball, and I mean a lot of air, to the point where you'd be concerned about the health and safety of your receivers, especially going over the middle, because he might leave them out to dry a lot because he just, again, doesn't have the natural arm to put it on a rope. Like, even when you say, well, you can throw the ball 50 yards down the field, a lot of average Joes can throw the ball 50 yards in ideal conditions with no wind, no rain, no pressure in their face, with their feet set and getting everything into it. But they also, like Mason Rudolph, will have to put a ton of air under the ball. And that means that touch and timing are so much more important. And again, his accuracy just isn't that great. So when I look at Mason Rudolph, it's tough because there are going to be some people that are really, really attached to him because of his production at the college level. I issued the caution and the warning that just because a guy was productive at the college level in no way, shape, or form automatically indicates he's going to have anywhere close to that level of success in the NFL. I don't feel like Mason Rudolph is ready to start in the NFL now, and I'm not 100% certain if he ever will be an NFL starter. He could be, which makes him an intriguing day 3 option, a guy that you bring in and you sit on the bench maybe for 2 years, and then if the opportunity presents itself, you see what you got in the guy. But he's got to get better in so many areas. Like when I hear people bagging on Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Sam Darnold, I'm sitting there saying to myself, Mason Rudolph has more major concerns to me and major issues than those other guys do, without those special traits or characteristics that would allow him to get by those other weaknesses and deficiencies. To me, I look at him, and my NFL comparison for him is a healthy Sam Bradford. You know, Bradford, I felt like got a little more athletic, honestly, when he got to the NFL than he ever was at Oklahoma. But Bradford was a guy that played in a system under Bob Stoops that took away his need to make a ton of decisions, took away the need to try and see the field, emphasized quick, short throws and easy reads, which padded accuracy numbers. Arm strength was lacking. Mason Rudolph's arm is even weaker than Sam Bradford's was. But when I pop on the game footage, when I pop on the film, and I look at Mason Rudolph, to me, I see a lot of similarities to Sam Bradford, and that's where I say, danger, danger, warning, warning, not worth all the buzz. Don't believe the hype. And it's reflected in my grade. I think I gave him like an 82.425. He's a 4th-round talent. And you know what? To be fair to him, 4th-round talent, guy that you take, that you bring in, and like I said, maybe he sits on the bench and learns for 2 to 3 years. You can work on some of those other deficiencies in practice and camps and so forth in the offseason, and he could potentially develop into that guy. I don't want to say he is a total bust and he has absolutely no chance, because that's not true at all, because some teams and some systems, frankly, value things more than others and less than others. And there might be some teams that will prioritize precision of passing and the ability to make quick decisions and read the field as opposed to pure arm strength and the ability to stretch it down the field. It's just the problem is right now is that for some of those teams, Mason Rudolph would still have some issues. So to me, he's a day 3 pick, and I think if a team took him in the 2nd or 3rd round, while it wouldn't be totally surprising in a quarterback-desperate league, I think they'd be nuts because they'd be buying way, way too high on his potential and talent level.